Hey guys, and welcome back to the English Shooting live stream. I'm of course your host for this evening, Callum, and yeah, thanks for joining. As always, of course, we do this every single week, 7:30 on Thursdays UK time, and it's been a fairly uneventful week for shooting sports here in the UK and firearms owners compared to the previous week's doom and glooms, but there are some updates. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching this, and if you're enjoying it, then why not like it, and also why not subscribe. It is also an interactive stream, so if you're watching live, then use the chat box, get involved, ask any questions you want, bring up any topics or whatever. Agree with me, disagree with me, just get the conversation going. That's what we're here to do, is to discuss all elements of things and really see both sides of stories and opinions. So yeah, something that caught my eye actually through Field Sports Britain. I've been watching a lot of their news stories recently because they're very, very hot on the whole revocation pandemic that we're currently having across the country, more over in Devon and Cornwall. But within their news stump, there was this new railgun or Gauss accelerator that looked absolutely awesome. Of course, I think it goes without saying, I'm into my shooting, I'm into my guns, but I also come from a background of electronic engineering, so when the two combine, it's just sort of like a match made in heaven. So there's this company called Arcflash Labs. They seem to be doing this for a while. This isn't actually the first one that they've brought out or that they've made or started to sell. Yes, you're probably going to gawp there at the price. You could buy a pretty tricked out AR-15 for that sort of money, and as we're going to see and look a little bit closer, this isn't exactly like a fully fledged, finished, high quality product. It is very much looking like a still in development sort of beta tester sort of gun. But it's their GR1 ANVIL, and it is a 65 foot-pound semi-automatic Gauss rifle. And it basically uses magnetic or electromagnetic acceleration to launch any metallic or any ferrous metal out of it. So anything that is obviously going to be affected by magnets, you can put in this and it will shoot out the end. It does look very homemade, I'm going to be completely honest, and for some reason their pictures aren't loading, but you can see here it's obviously a lot of 3D printing, a lot of just sort of bare bones electronics in there. Now, I pose this as, is this the future of the gun? I can't say no. In terms of is this where we're heading in terms of shooting at the end of the day, and I think funnily enough the best sort of link to this is the UK's definition of a firearm, which is a lethal barreled weapon, or something that is capable of discharging a projectile from a barrel that would be deemed lethal. Now, it doesn't say anything about gunpowder, it doesn't say anything about primers or ammunition, so on and so forth. So, the bare essence of a gun is a barrel that projects something, right? So why couldn't we see later down the line electronic guns, rail guns, magnetic guns, Gauss guns? So we could be, this could be like the beginnings of we could be seeing the beginnings of like 3D printers. 3D printers were very sort of cobbled together, or home 3D printers were very cobbled together to begin with, and equivalently didn't look too dissimilar to this. So we could be seeing the beginnings of the future of shooting sports. So yeah, I mean, unfortunately these bloody pictures won't load. I'll give the page a refresh and see if it comes back up. Here we go. This seems to have done the trick. So I've already shown this one, and now it's sort of locked me out. Come on, there we go. So you've got the schematics. This is pre-orders only, and look at the dimensions, and you'll see in a minute why I'm saying this. again, it's not really showing a huge amount, to be honest. And I don't know. I don't know if that's convincing enough to go and drop $3,375, and that is a discounted price. The full retail price is going to be $3,750. Again, you can buy quite a lot for that in the, let's say, conventional firearms market. They've got a bit of a promotional video. Again, it doesn't really show you a huge amount of it, but you do get a size of scale, and they are hailing this as the first sort of handheld Gauss rifle in the world. And I mean, at 65 foot-pounds, you know, that's not the most powerful gun out there, but it is, you know, bearing in mind over 12 foot-pound air rifle here in the UK is considered a firearm. 65 foot-pound is, yeah, it's going to do some damage, isn't it? You're going to get some distance out of it. And as you can see, they're basically just putting metal bar stock into there, just like, well, you can, you know, they've gone to the hardware store and just cut up some raw metal, and that's your projectile, that's your bullets. But yeah, it's semi-auto, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, that's looks a bit techie, but it is absolutely huge. It doesn't look like something that you would be able to, you know, go out hunting with, you know, strapped to your back or, you know, sling over your shoulder. It is absolutely massive. Yeah, like look at that. And that guy is a normal sized guy. That isn't like, you know, somebody really short holding that gun. So yeah, but we're seeing the beginnings of this, right? It's not. I'm not going to say it's fully developed, even though they're selling this as a finished product. Even though you can go and buy it, I think we're seeing the stepping stones, as it were, towards electronic firearms, Gauss rifles, railguns, whatever you want to call them. But they also have this, which seems to look smaller, but this is only a 3.5 foot-pound fully automatic Gauss accelerator. So this is the world's first commercially electromagnetic coil gun. They're doing them in batches. Still £1,000 or $1,000. And I don't know why this one isn't necessarily the first handheld one. Again, it looks like it's been something cobbled together in somebody's bedroom. But fair play, you know, it's still pretty impressive to cobble something like that together, and they must be selling them. You know, they're on to their 5th batch with this. Yeah, still very 3D printed, but the difference, you can see they're picking up pace. The first one, 3.5 foot-pounds, and now they're selling one which is 65 foot-pounds. So it's going to go up there, isn't it? You know, it's gonna start moving. It's going to start. It's like Moore's law, isn't it? It's like when USB sticks, you know, for like, what was it? I remember when like 256 megabyte USB stick was like 150 quid, and now they give them away at fairs. And I think we're going to see this with sort of electromagnetic rail guns, Gauss guns, whatever you want to call them. And I was talking to Connors about this. There's actually a very distinct difference between a rail gun and what they're calling a Gauss gun. I think he was saying about basically with a rail gun, the ammunition works with the gun, so it's sort of very specific, whereas this, and I think what the cool factor about this is, especially with ammunition shortages across the world, you know, we do see it here in the UK, but obviously in the US there's been huge ammunition shortages. This, you can go and get a bolt, you can go and get a bit of raw metal, you can go and get anything metallic or anything that is going to be magnetic. You put it in there and it fires away. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll see where that goes. It would be cool to be able to get my hands on one while we're out in the US. Needless to say, being semi-automatic and 65 foot-pounds, this is very much Section 5, so I doubt that we'll see them over here in the UK. But if I get the opportunity to have a play with one of those out in the US, I absolutely will. I've always said anything with a trigger, and it's got a trigger. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and of course, if there's any questions, any topics you want to get onto, use the chat box, we're getting to them, and hopefully can answer any questions. I'm always about helping new people into the sport. So if you're lurking there and you're thinking, oh, I don't want to make a fool of myself, not that I ever have a reputation for going off and one up people on this stream, but I'll be nice, I promise. There's no such thing as a stupid question, just stupid answers. Is it a bullpup? Well, it depends where they put the magazine, right? Of course, my famous faux pas with, what was it? Was it the Kel-Tec? Still looks like a bullpup to me, all right? Just fuck off, Daniel. Phase plasma rifle in the 40 watt range. I can imagine so. Prices will presumably come down over time, though. Yeah, exactly what I was saying about the USB pens, the USB sticks. They used to be horrendously expensive for something nowadays that are quite primitive. You know, I use micro SD cards in drones and in various cameras, and you can get half a terabyte micro SD cards for like 50 quid now. And rewind 15, 20 years ago, that would have blown your mind. Having the technology to fit that much storage space in something so small, but also the cost. And stuff like this makes makes me excited, because you can laugh about it. You can say that's a sort of science project gone wrong, but the first of things always are very primitive. Like, look at the first Apple computer, right? It had like a wooden, the very, very first one, they were hand soldered, hand built, and had wood in them, for crying out loud. They had like a wooden housing, and it's very easy to look back at those and laugh. Well, look where we are now. And funnily enough, I got a offer to upgrade on my phone, which I don't think I'm going to actually take up. I'm perfectly happy with my phone at the moment, but I was looking at all the new specs of phones and the storage capacities, and the thing that, like, you sort of don't look at phones for 2 years, and the way they jump forward, and the fact that you can get a terabyte hard drive or terabyte storage in an iPhone now, and they're £1,500. It's like, that's a Mac, right? That's what you can get, a Mac for 1,500 quid. And this is what I think we're going to see with these. Like, they're going to scale down the technology. They're going to become cheaper. They're going to become more accessible. And it's just like with 3D printers. Look at the likes of Prusa. You can now buy a pretty state-of-the-art, something that would have easily been state-of-the-art 5-10 years ago. You can go and buy that for 300 quid. Like, that makes it accessible to anybody, and that's why we're seeing such an explosion of home hobbyists and home 3D printists, because most people can afford them, most people can assemble them now, and they're very easy to use, whereas previously they weren't. And we're going to see this, at the moment it's going to be the real firearm enthusiasts, right? People that potentially want to buy the first of something, may even go up in value, like the old Apple ones, they sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars now. So you're going to get huge, really avid enthusiasts buying these sorts of guns. But when it scales down and you can go and buy one for 300-400 quid, and you think of the ongoing savings, you don't ever have to go and buy ammunition again. Like, basically any metallic object that's small enough to fit in the magazine, it will fire. So, perfect in terms of like even a survivalist sort of environment. The stories of the Chiappa, what are they called? It's the Chiappa folding rifle. Oh God, they're only not 150 quid. What are they called? It's like the cricket or something. Is it the Badger? Badger and cricket, like very close, obviously. Little Badger, yeah. So those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, certainly calling it a cricket, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. It was told to me that these were actually used for, well, it's meant to be a survival gun, but I think there's a certain Air Force, maybe the Italian Air Force, because it's Chiappa, but These were basically like standard issue, and it's could be effectively a last resort self-defense gun. You know, if your plane is downed and you know you don't have anything with you, but it's actually meant to be like a survivalist for hunting. So they come in like 22LR, I think 17 HMR, maybe even WMR. It collapses down and folds. Really basic single shot, hammer action, and you've got room for your ammunition there, and it's just such a neat idea. Perhaps we could see like rail guns being used in that situation, because if you're out there, if you're stranded somewhere and you don't have ammunition, or you have a limited supply of ammunition, well, how long you can use that gun depends on how much ammunition you have. So although if you get stranded in a rainforest, I don't think there's going to be particularly a lot of metal lying about, but well, I suppose if you've had a whole plane that's downed, there might be a lot of metal there that you could use for ammunition, but you don't know. William Tell, in the UK, lethal barrel does not mean it can kill. It's to do with the damage, but it's normally taken that a barrel fires things out of it, despite a recently lower English court ruling on airbows. Airbows? I might have to look into those. But so lethal barrel doesn't just mean it can kill. I mean, by sort of the definition of lethal barreled, like it has to be lethal. But I get what you mean. I mean, well, there's always the argument of, can a sub 12 foot-pound gun kill? Absolutely, with the right shot placement and ammunition and things like that. But you can be shot by an air rifle and not be killed, but yet they can be still obviously restricted, and they're under our firearms law. It probably weighs 80 pounds, yes. Yeah, it just doesn't look necessarily the most wieldy out there. Derek P. A railgun has two parallel conducting rails. Part of the projectile completes that circuit. These Gauss guns will fire any old iron or ferromagnetic projectiles that can fit into the ball. Yep, thank you for a much better, simplistic, and probably more correct explanation than I gave. English shooting, look at the E shotgun. Okie dokie. UK. Advanced coil gun. Oh, now this looks cool. Let's bring this up for you. So thanks Happy for bringing this up. The E shotgun. It's advanced coil gun for player and home. What? For player and home defense. Player's gonna play. Don't hate the game. Let's have a product price, release time. Well, don't. Oh, there we go. With regard to the pricing issue that everyone concerns about, the founding edition is, wow. So you can see like an option that's a hell of a lot cheaper. Is $12.99. In future, the MSRP of the official product is expected to be $19.80. So it's on Demolition Ranch. Interesting. Let's see if I can find that video on here. Products. Projectile energy sub 16 joules. It's not particularly powerful out there. Still pretty cool though. It does fascinate. I can see, you know, this is where it starts. It starts with the hobbyist, with the sort of home brew, and then it starts to sort of go from there. It certainly looks better. Although it looks more like it's going to be a disc projectile than a just random rod. Why is it always watermelons? What did the watermelons do to you? Yeah, I want one. Yep. Yeah, I want one. Sold. It's like the ultimate Nerf gun. Still probably Section 5 here in the UK. I don't... Jeez. That is cool. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to be on the other end of one, would you? Like, I don't think it looks like it's making it all the way through that TV. But I still wouldn't stand in front of one, you know? Like, non-lethal near defense weapon. There we go. It's more like a digital product. That is really cool. So you see, things are developing. Things are getting more interesting out there. So yeah, thanks again, Happy, for recommending that. I have to keep an eye on that one as well. Wyborn IPSC, hello. Thanks for joining. Which Wyborn is it? Ricochet, I haven't seen many brick gun channels talking about revolver rifles. Seems like an easy way to own a centerfire repeating rifle. Well, repeating, yes. So I've got to be... Well, I don't have one, and, you know, it's... So there's a really weird technicality with the... on revolving rifles, there's the Chiappa. And again, why is it all Chiappa this evening? There's this... it's the Chiappa... What is it? Revolving rifle. And I think the way... I'm going to try and find it and bring it up so you know what I'm talking about. I think this is the right... Yes. So you can have a revolving rifle. So yes, of course you can have a revolving rifle, because that's why we have LBRs. So we do, like, LBRs, long-barreled revolvers, are in essence revolving rifles, because that's how they're legal. That's how they can go on to Section 1. But there's a really funny... Oh, and the Chiappa website isn't working great. So there's a sort of a really funny oddity about the revolving rifle from Chiappa, and it's the debate of whether it's legal. And it's just showing me the LBRs. I swear it was Chiappa that had the revolving rifle. Again, I can't remember what it's bloody called, which is why I can't find it. Hopefully somebody out there knows what it is. Like, why can't I find anything today? I'm pretty sure it was Chiappa that made it. But anyway, there was... so I can't remember what it was chambered in, but it was a revolving rifle. It was sold under Section 1 as a rifle, but you could also put 410 shotgun cartridges in it. The issue is, for revolving shotguns are very illegal here, or they're not necessarily illegal, but they are Section 5. So it's like, you can own this gun legally, but as soon as you put 410 shotgun cartridges in it, it becomes Section 5. And it's very, very dicey, but I do believe they still sell them, and I do believe there's a number of people out there with them. But yes, the whole way that we sort of still have revolvers is effectively having revolving rifles, because they put a rod on the end of them. And I'll bring up because it's all it's showing me is the LBRs, and actually I can show you Connor's in action with one. It's a gun, like Connor's has a Chiappa Rhino himself now, although it's not actually this gun. So you know, for the first glance, looks like any other normal gun, right? You would be like, why is there a silencer on the end of that revolver? This is actually a pretty good shot. I think he has that picture there, and he's doing a very good job there of hiding the rod. But you can actually see on this LBR, so it's actually got a 12-inch barrel, which is what that shroud is hiding, and then it's got this rod at the end here, which makes the total length of it 24 inches. So it actually conforms to being a rifle, not a handgun or a short arm, which were prohibited, or they're no longer under Section 1, they are Section 5, of course, under after Dunblane. But yeah, that is effectively a revolving rifle, but there are other people that make full revolving rifles as well. But yeah, I mean, you're still limited to that 6 shots. It's not like, you know, what people really want when we talk about getting full bores, and you know, that's why straight pull rifles are so popular, because you can still have like an AR-15 platform. It's all well and good having those 6 shots, but certainly for myself, coming from a sort of sporting angle, it doesn't really offer that much. Of course, you can have revolver pistol disciplines and you can still emulate those with an LBR. You're not really held back there, but there's not really any sporting disciplines that use revolving rifles. So it's like with IPSC, it's been talked about for a long time about doing some full bore rifle here in the UK and using straight pull rifles, but you need enough people with straight pull rifles. You need the space. Obviously, full bore rifle matches use a hell of a lot of space to be able to, you know, one of the reasons you do rifle matches is to get distance. And, you know, out in the rifle world shoots, they were shooting, I think, 300-400 yards plus. To do that in multiple bays or multiple stages, there's very few places you can do that here in the UK. Of course, the National Shooting Centre, loads of space to be able to do it, but they're too busy wanking over their target rifles, but we'll move away from that. But yeah, you can have them. They are legal here, just not particularly popular. Giza, English shooting LBR are not classed as rifles, they are classed as a firearm. Revolving rifle are Section 1, revolving shotguns are Section 5. Yep, that's what I believe they are. LBR are not classed as rifles, they are classed as firearm. Well, they're technically classed as long arms. So, well, we do have the definition of a rifle in the UK. There is a or something with a rifled barrel. That's why you have the rifle. That's why you have a shotgun. A shotgun being defined as a smooth bore gun that fires multiple projectiles. But the whole thing that it's just classed as a firearm, I don't think is strictly true. There is, of course, no strict definition of an LBR or an LBP. The police sort of make up their own as they go along, which wouldn't be the first time. But yeah, they're actually, like, technically in sort of shooty speak, they're a carbine rather than a rifle. But the case, there was and unfortunately didn't set precedent. We've talked about this before. There was a club, I think, in London or the outskirts of London, and they wanted an LBP or an LBR for a club gun, and they ended up going to court and basically said to the jury, like, well, look, you know, is this a rifle? You know, or is this a long arm? Or, you know, well, yeah, no, rifle. I think the whole case was around a rifle, and they were saying that, you know, to be able to have something on a Section 1, but I think the argument was what differentiates an LBP from a rifle. I think that was the argument that they were going with. And they were saying, well, look, a rifle can be shared amongst club members under the club exemption. So why can't an LBP or an LBR? And they were saying, what actually distinguishes an LBP from a rifle? Well, the only sort of definition between, say, a long arm and short arm is the length within the UK. So by definition, conforming to the 24 inches overall and 12-inch barrel, it was indistinguishable from a rifle. There is nothing like what do you put in law that bans, because this is obviously the way that the Home Office, NABUS and the police would look at it. How do you write into law banning an LBP or an LBR without banning a rifle? It's very, very hard for them to do, which is why I think they haven't done it. And not forgetting that to muddy the waters even more, the Browning butt mark from Westlake Engineering, obviously Alan Westlake, the godfather of long barrel pistols. It's the reason that we have long barrel pistols. Super legend. I'm gonna see, I think he's got a picture on his site, and the reason this really muddies the water is because the Browning butt mark starts as a rifle. It is just a modified rifle. So if it start, it's like the argument. Here we go. This is the best picture. You start getting into the US territories of like what's an arm brace and what's a stock and things like that. So Alan Westlake, the first long-barreled pistol that was created here in the UK, he took the Browning butt mark rifle, which you can see at the top of your screen. Very well, it's not exactly the most conventional-looking rifle out there, but you can see it's got a stock that you can, weld your cheek to, and it's got a reasonably long barrel. And what he ended up doing is just cutting it off here and here and putting onto a rod. Well, is that rod now not a stock? Because you could still brace that against yourself, and obviously shorten the barrel down to the bare minimum of 12 inches. There was a lot more that he did to the gun as well, but that's basically the same thing. So in legal definition, what makes the bottom not a rifle and the top one is, right? Because again, you say, well, the top one's got a stock. Well, what's a stock? Describe to me what a stock is. It's something that you brace against yourself, right? Well, again, you can brace that rod to it. So this is the issue that the police have had for a very long time, because we all know they want to get rid of long barrel pistols. We all know they want to get rid of LBRs, but you can't really ban them without banning rifles. So again, big props to Alan Westlake, and I always like sort of showing off his site because there's some really interesting stuff on here. So it's Westlake Engineering. He makes muzzle loading revolvers. So these are actually like modern revolvers that have been converted to muzzle loading, so they can still be owned under Section 1. Of course, take a long time to load, would be very hard to say compete with one, but people do in various disciplines. Built out of the alpha, as you can see. He does various different, sporting ones and different barrels, and they're all, well, he buys a lot of the stuff in, but the real engineering, the conversion, is done here, all in the UK. And I love, actually did an interview with him for another channel, and we're already on his products. I don't know if he goes into it that much. No, it doesn't really talk about it. But basically, the reason this guy is such a legend is because he's very open and blunt and honest about what made him make the and again, I think you just saw it there. The first long barrel pistol technically wasn't the Browning butt mark. It was the Britarms 2.2, but the first long barrel pistol as we know it today. Basically, during this interview, he was like, I was really into my handguns. I think he was making handguns and was very well known as a sort of handgun gunsmith at the time. And he was like, look, them banning handguns for pretty much absolutely no reason or with no justification really pissed me off. So I basically put all my time and energy in finding a way that we could still have some form of handgun to basically stick two fingers up to the UK government. And I'm like, you lad, like, just, and he's like, if you see him at a show, you might think, oh, he's an old fud, right? Because he's like this old guy, and he has quite a traditional, like, older style, like, looking stand, and obviously the website isn't like the most technologically advanced, but you start talking to him and he's by no means a fud. He is all about pushing things to the limit, interpreting the law to its fullest, And again, we owe him for having the long barrel pistol and revolvers without a long barreled or rod, because he makes the muzzle loading. So absolute props to him. Absolute wealth of knowledge, both technically and in engineering, but also the history of UK sports and UK shooting sports and the law as well. So yeah, if you see Westlake Engineering at a show, well, firstly go and thank him, but go and chat to him, because you will come away richer with knowledge and well, richer from the experience overall. LBRs cannot take advantage of Section 15 of the 1988 Act because they are not classed as rifles. Again, this is what they argued in saying that case you were talking about was when I think a fella who converted a Section 1 rifle to an LBP for club use. No, this whole case was about long-barreled rifles and long-barrel pistols. It's a made-up term. They don't actually exist. There's no legal definition for them. And what we know as an LBR or an LBP is still a rifle. They are, by all definition, a rifle. They conform to the same length and other criteria as what we would call a rifle. And yes, you're right in saying the reason LBRs and LBPs, they're not covered because they're not classed as a rifle. The police don't class them as a rifle because the police don't want to class them as a rifle. In terms of legal definition, as we've just discussed, there's nothing separating them from a rifle. There is no legal definition of an LBR. You have long guns, you have short guns, you have rifles, you have shotguns, obviously black powder and things like that. And this is what the case was about, was that the LBRs and LBPs should not be excluded from the exemption, from the, as you say, Section 15. I don't know the section off the top of my head, but let's go with Section 15, that they should be included under Section 15 because they are in essence a rifle. That was the argument that they had in court, and that they were successful in winning. The jury agreed that an LBP or an LBR is a rifle and therefore should be included under Section 15 and therefore should be able to be shared by the rest of the club. The issue is that didn't set precedent. So anybody else that wants to fight that fight, you would have to go back through the court. You get a different judge, you get a different jury on a different day, you could end up in prison. You could end up being found guilty, and this is the real travesty of the way this whole thing has played out. This one club has this one exemption, or one tick in the box. They've managed to go through the courts and win, so they're allowed to have an LBP or an LBR because they've got the winning court case that allows them to. But any other club can't do it, and it's. Technically, if you go in front of another jury and you refer back to that case, like, it should be a no-brainer. But personally, I wouldn't be willing to take that risk. I very much like staying well within the laws that we have, and staying as far out of the grey area as possible. That railgun is illegal. No, anything that sends a projectile with more than 12.5 pounds of force is required to be on an FAC. No. So they're all American. So this isn't something being made and done here in the UK. Bearing in mind that 2 out of the 3 that I've shown are full auto, Section 5 pretty much instantly. I think it's, unless it's under a joule, and I think that other one was 16 joules, that's definitely Section 5. Section 5 criteria. I think that's the best word. And then the other one, 65 foot-pounds. Well, it's a semi-automatic rifle. Well, no, it doesn't have rifle. So is it a shotgun? Is it effectively? Ooh, because again, the legal definition of a rifle here in the UK is something with a rifled barrel. If it's a coil gun, it's not going to have rifling. So it's effectively a shotgun shooting a slug. So technically it's section 2 if it's semi-auto, or section 1. Well, no, because you can have, again, this is a really grey area. Can you shoot slug through a section 2 shotgun? But it could go under a section 1 shotgun. Certainly if you have multiple projectiles, so you make like homemade buckshot. Someone's putting very bad ideas into my head. But yeah, the other ones being full auto, and I think again it's above 1 joule. Anything above 1 joule full auto is just instant section 5. Gez Roberts, so out of interest, if I put a 1-for-1 variation for a 45 muzzle loading pistol, I could then get a Westlake Nitro version. Yes, it is a muzzle loading pistol. Like again, the Westlakes, just because they're modern, and again, this is why like he's just such a cool dude, because obviously the muzzle loading under section 1 was meant to be for like historical black powder guns. Now, of course, you do get modern, let's say black powder guns, although it's not necessarily always black powder that we use now. But he was like, well, actually, I could get a modern functioning revolver and use the muzzle loading rules under section 1 to make a modern functioning muzzle loader. And it's not a muzzle loader in the truest sense, because you take you actually can take the cylinder out and you load the cylinder individually. And what a lot of owners will do, and this is the funny thing, is in UK law, because they're a pressure bearing part, the cylinder, you need a slot for every single one. But people that go and compete with them in gallery rifle, who are required to do a certain amount of shots within a certain time period, can say to the referee, oh, well, I can't load these cylinders up that fast, so I'm automatically going to like void myself out of the competition, so I need multiple cylinders. So you will get people that will have, instead of like the moon clip holders on their belts, they will have cylinder holders around them, and they will load up 4 or 5 cylinders, and they will just reload cylinders, you know. So you could effectively speed load with an Allen Westlake, because you drop the old cylinder. I wouldn't drop it because they're not exactly cheap, but you could drop it and do the fast reload. Maybe we should do that, like try and beat like Jerry Michalak's records with a Allen Westlake muzzle loader. I mean, I'm up for it. But yeah, they end up with multiple cylinders, and then you just reload the cylinders. It's so cool the way this guy thinks. Just absolute props to him. Rich Weston, thanks for joining. It's been a while. I know you've been about on your travel, but thanks for stopping by. Prague was awesome. Many thanks to the Caliber Innovations team and Kentucky Firearms Club. So yeah, more trips out to Prague. There's been some really cool photos coming over if you've been looking at Caliber Innovations or Kentucky Firearms Club. But glad to hear you had a good time. Connors and I so wanted to go. We're still very much catching up after Black Friday. The last of the loaders should be sent out tomorrow if anybody is waiting. We spent all of today, and again, my hands are very, very cut, black, grubby and greasy from all the hard work, of course. But yeah, good to hear you had a good time out there. Bottom line is, some twat decided they still wanted a handgun. LBP should have never been called that. It's just a carbine. Absolutely. I get that. You know, oh, I've got a pistol. Oh, you know, the police are like, oh, do you now? If you could change 3 UK gun laws, what would they be? Well, of course, handguns on section 1, semi-auto full balls on section 1, but what would I do with the third? I don't know. On the spot, I'm going to go with all shotguns, regardless of mechanism or capacity, goes on a section 2. Because then that would make practical shotgun a hell of a lot more accessible. You know, it would just absolutely explode the sport for us, and also it means that clubs could be able to share them. Oh no, would I use it on that? Or maybe the third one. The third, like getting handguns back and getting semi-auto full-bore rifles back, no brainer. That's what I would do with just 2 of it. But with the third one, there's quite a lot. After those 2, there's still quite a lot I'd like to do. Maybe even changing the law so that you have 1 certificate, just 1 certificate for everything. Once you've got that certificate, you're allowed to buy whatever you want. You know, maybe not whatever you want, but you know, you're allowed to go and buy handguns, semi-auto rifles, shotguns, or you know, whatever for sporting or hunting use. But yeah, it's an interesting question. But yeah, handguns and semi-auto rifles, we need those back. People talking about different guns and the binary trigger. Why do you need a binary trigger when your gun can shoot 2 bullets at the same time? This is something that I saw pop up sort of in general news about the SAS by no less than the Mirror, of course, a great source of information for firearms out there in the internet. Now, I always thought this gun was a bit of a meme gun. I'm going to be completely honest. I've seen it many times before, and I was like, what is the bloody use of that? And apparently the SAS thought there's lots of use for them. So the SAS, the specials have started using a double-barreled rifle, saying that using new machine gun that fires 2 bullets together and targets drop like flies. The Gilboa Snake blasts out 2 bullets at a time and has been used by the SAS in Afghanistan and Syria combat zones. Its laser gives soldiers an accurate range at 800 meters. Right. Yeah, okay. The SAS have a new twin-barrel machine gun that fires 1,000 shots per minute and 2 bullets at a time. They must have really big magazines, making targets drop like flies. So, yeah, it was always like one of these. Just because you can do that doesn't mean you should. But apparently the SAS really like it. I mean, personally, I would just say to the SAS, maybe use a bigger caliber. You know, you can get into the, stopping power versus capacity argument all day long, but it does seem, I don't know, is it April Fools? Like really, the SAS, are they seeing a benefit? I mean, if you're going to get shot by a 223, I mean, of course, two 223s is always better than 223, but I would imagine getting shot by a 223 is probably going to drop you like a fly anyway, or just use a 308. Or why not a 338? For more accurate aim, the rifle can be fitted with lasers, enabling it to have effective range. Oh god, they really don't know what the fuck they're talking about, do they? Yes, because suddenly adding lasers increases the effective range of the gun. Shots fired at a range of 100 meters in a 20-round burst can accurately hit a target. Like, what are they even talking about? I didn't really read this article fully. It's just, obviously they've got the apprentice journalist who knows fuck all about guns. Yes, if you put lasers on your gun, they become more accurate. Yeah, that's new to me. Is that like if you put a racing stripe on your car, it makes it like, it gives it like 10 extra horsepower? The rifles even fires when it jams, so troops aren't left naked in conflict. Right. Is that meant to be like, if one of them jams, the other one still works, so you've effectively got a backup? Because, like, as far as I'm aware, I mean, you know, like, Chris Defiance owners will probably know more than I will, but when a gun jams up, it usually stops working, right? That's sort of the whole thing about a That's usually the whole thing about it's flick stories. Well, I didn't want that. Okay, we were looking at the gun, and I spoiled that for everyone. But yeah, just like, I wouldn't have thought it. I wouldn't have thought that a double-barreled rifle would have been, because you've got to effectively transport double the mags. It's like you've got 2 mags for each gun. You're gonna need more. You're gonna go through more ammunition. Like that doesn't. I don't know. Be interesting to see their take on that and why they went for that. Pull the trigger once to double tap. Yeah, you know, binary trigger, binary gun. Maybe it identifies as a pony. I don't know. Not good room clearing, bigger round. Can confirm my application. Talking about. What are you guys talking about? Callum, we should go in March. Absolutely, we're going to try our best. I believe we are. I believe we are going to Prague in March. Connors will be doing some courses out there and training, and I'll be tagging along because, well, why not? Just go and play with some guns for a weekend. So yeah, get in contact with Caliber Innovations or Kentucky Firearms Club. I don't know who officially is running those, but either or will be able to point you in the right direction if you want to come out to Prague and shoot some handguns and some semi-auto full bores. Yes, unfortunately in the UK we have to go out to a different country to be able to shoot with the good stuff. Ollie, FIA prize giving theme song is the same as English shooting. What can I say? What can I say? We're both rigged. Don't get me started. I was genuinely looking forward to this stream so I don't have to think of the absolute fuckery that went on at the weekend. I'm still hurt. I am a die-hard Hamilton fan. He is the reason I watch F1. I know everyone's going, oh, you only watch it because the person you support wins. I watched all of his McLaren years, right? He was only really shit hot in sort of like 2/3 of those years. He spent a lot of time with a very shit car, and I supported him throughout. And yeah, so I still haven't fully recovered. If those of you that don't know, again, I know this is a shooting channel, but deal with it. For those of you that don't know, the FIA are corrupt, and they basically rigged a whole race, or they rigged the end of a race to create a new champion so that the Drive to Survive series at Netflix would be a little bit more dramatic. It's probably an over-exaggeration of the whole thing. Basically, Hamilton was streaming ahead in the race, was going to win. Literally only a miracle, or a Latifi, otherwise known as, could stop him from, you know, he had a 12, even though he was on worse tyres, he had a 12-second lead. Max wasn't closing in on him anywhere near as fast as he needed to be in a position to overtake. Then there was a safety car. Now, in any other race, in any other year, the race probably would have finished behind a safety car. They can't overtake in the safety car, and Hamilton would have still been in first and would have won the championship. It was whoever finished ahead of the other driver would win the championship. So Max in front of Lewis, Max wins it. Lewis in front of Max, Lewis wins it. And for some reason, they decided to only let 5 cars through from the procession, and despite it saying very particularly in the rules that then the race restarts the lap after lapped cars have come through, they decided to instantly start it, and this all happened within about 15 seconds. And needless to say, I was screaming at the TV. And anybody out there that wants to give the argument that Mercedes and Lewis had the opportunity to pit, fuck you, you're wrong. That's not how it works. Based on every single race previously, it was going, like, based on what the rules say, it was going to either end under a safety car, or, well, it was going to end under a safety car, basically. That's what was going to happen. And they decided to just throw out the rule book, do something that they've never done before, which Mercedes couldn't have possibly foreseen. If they'd have pitted Hamilton, what would have happened is he would have ended up behind Max, because Red Bull wouldn't have, again, foreseen that the FIA were going to suddenly change all the rules and do something that they've never done before. They would have left Max out. Hamilton would have come then out behind Max. At the end of the day, when Hamilton didn't pit, Max had enough space and enough time to be able to come in, pit, and go out without losing position. It was a no-brainer for them to pit. Hamilton would have ended up behind Max. And I can bet, I'm just going to get my crystal ball out. If Hamilton had done that, you can bet they would have then ended up under the safe. They would have ended the race under the safety car. It's just that was stolen away. And don't get me wrong, Max deserves to be world champion. I'm not a bitter Hamilton fan like that. Max deserved it. He drove in all of the figures. You know, he led the most laps, most podiums, most wins. You know, arguably in a slower car. Although it's funny how that, you know, Red Bull came out like, we've got the best car this year, and now suddenly he's won in the slowest car. Figure how that one works out. But he, just, you know, just on the stats alone, he deserves to be world champion. No problem with that, right? What I just had wished is that he would have beaten. There wasn't this controversy, and what they should have done is red flagged, right? As soon as that, they should have already preempted this. If within the last 5 laps or even 10 laps of the race, to avoid an absolute fuckwittery and to reduce any margin and to create what ended up being created, red flag the race, right? All the drivers come in, they put fresh tyres on, they go out on the grid in the position that they were. Yes, Hamilton wouldn't have had that 12-second gap, but then you have an actual fair fight for the finish. And that's the thing, is if they just red flagged it, brought everybody in, put everyone on fresh tyres, and they'd had like a 2, 3, 4, 5 lap sprint race effectively to decide the championship. If Max had overtaken Hamilton on the same tyres on level playing field, fine, you deserved it. A bit shit that he's had his 12-second lead diminished, but that's racing, not making up the fucking rules as you go. Anyway, as you can say, I'm fairly bitter about last weekend. Not against Max, against Michael Massey. He should be sacked. FIA really need to have a big hard look at themselves. And actually, I wanted to look at the awards evening. I may catch up later after the stream. I won't stop watching it now. Talked about F1 too much, but anyway, passionate. I wanted to confirm whether, maybe you can, Ollie, confirm if Lewis and Toto actually are in attendance, because as far as I heard, they weren't going to, and fair play, because just absolute shit show. Anyway, that's enough F1 for this stream. Unless you really want to start talking about it. Beaten last minute. He wasn't beaten last minute. That wasn't being beaten. That was not a race. Like, everyone goes, you know, we went motor racing. No, you didn't. Like, Hamilton's on like 40 lap old hards and Max is on 2 lap old softs. I wonder what's going to happen. Like, although in the weird scenario that Hamilton managed to fend off Max on those tyres, that would have been godlike. That, like, no one would have been able to answer against that. GZERP, FIA and the Home Office both making up stupid rules and regulations at a whim. Like, I've always fancied getting into motorsports. Maybe I shouldn't. If only, coulda, woulda, shoulda. No, if only the FIA just stuck to their own bloody rule books. FIA and Michael Massey should be sacked. Yep, completely agree. Have I missed the Gauss Rifle? You did. But we can have another look at it again. That is what the stream was all about. Salty Hamilton fans. I'm not salty. I'm not salty that Max won, right? At all. I'm salty that Hamilton literally had it taken away from him. And they were, that's racing. Safety cars are part of racing. Oh, you know, changing your pits under a safety, you know, changing your tyres in the pits under a safety car. That's just racing. This stuff happens. No, it doesn't. Literally, it's never happened. It's never happened that they've only let 5 cars through under a safety car to unlap themselves. It's never happened that they have released the safety lap the same lap that they released the unlapped cars. That's never happened. That's not racing. Right? Salty at the fucking FIA. I'm not salty that Lewis lost. I'm not salty that Max won. Just salty about that fucking race. UK has a lot of good racing. Here in the US, it's either NASCAR, drag racing. I hate NASCAR. Like, there's IndyCar. I mean, IndyCar is like the obviously US equivalent of like F1. A lot of F1 drivers, or say retired or retiring F1 drivers, are going and doing more IndyCar. Mainly, obviously, like Fernando Alonso, the Indy 500. The Indy 500 is a race that even F1 drivers aspire to win at some point in their career. It's like the Triple Crown. It's like winning Le Mans. Like, I mean, the one that everyone says is like winning Monaco. So it's like the Indy 500, Monaco, and Le Mans. That's like the Triple Crown of it. Yeah, NASCAR doesn't really appeal to me personally. I don't really see it much as like racing, more like fast circles, like fast donuts. Rich Weston, if his car was white, he would have won. Silver, if his car was silver, you mean? No, it's all good. Just go back and watch the. I'll just go back and watch the stream back. It's no longer a sport, it's about entertainment, and after that debate, I'll not be following F1. If you want real balls out racing, watch the TT. Yeah, there's one clip out there. I know this is about Gun Channel. We will get onto the railgun in a minute, or the coil gun, or the Gauss gun. There's a clip of somebody. They're in a Subaru. I don't think it's a rally car, but it's a Subaru race car, and he loses it at like the fastest point of the TT. And he ends up like at least a full 45 degrees from where he should be pointing, maybe even getting closer to 90 degrees. And just like a boss, just holds it, corrects it, plants his foot down and carries on. Like, that is serious racing. But yeah, if the FIA don't in some way... Well, firstly, if Hamilton ends up retiring because of this, I probably won't watch F1, although I do want to see George in a Mercedes. I do like Lando, so I'm just posturing. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough F1. That's enough racing. All right. As you can see, I'm always repping the racing behind me. Bob Bard. I've been meaning to talk about this. Keep forgetting. We get back onto the guns. Just one last car thing, but slightly shooting related. A while back, I said I was going to get a shooting related car, or a car that would be like good as a shooting mobile. My midlife crisis got the better of me, so I was literally a day away from buying a Freelander 2 4x4 solid car, good A to B car as well, get up all the ranges, get go wherever. Unfortunately, I'm not in a position to have a Range Rover yet, but we get there. And then I ended up buying a Volvo V70 as my daily. So a little bit of difference. So that's why I haven't really talked about getting a shooting car. Basically, I've got a motorway cruiser and a dad, or I think the best one I heard was I thought only geography teachers drove V70s. Really comfortable car, smooth, but not exciting in the least, and nowhere at all close to being any sort of shooting car. But yeah, that's what I ended up going for. Not really much to talk about that. But yeah, just solid everyday car, which is what I wanted. I've been driving my silly weekend car far too much as it is. But yeah, anyway, somebody was asking about the Gauss gun. Let's bring that up. So, company called Arcflash Labs. This isn't their first endeavor, but the main thing here is the power. They've made what they call a Gauss rifle, which is a coil gun, not strictly a rail gun, that you can put any metal or ferrous metal projectile in there. It's semi-auto, 65 foot-pounds, $3,375 special offer. They also do have this one here, but as you can see, it's only 3.5 foot-pound. It is full auto though. So yeah, that's basically it. In terms of the future of shooting, I can see this see it taking off. I can, you know, when they miniaturize it, when it gets cheaper, then I can see this being enough. You know, why are you? Oh, it's got stuck. Anyway, 3D, obviously 3D printer, very homebrew at the moment, but I can see this, like the military, I bet you are going to be watching this stuff like hawks. Apparently, though, they're not very accurate. I read somewhere, I think it was Vice. So Vice did a whole article on it. Funnily enough, there seems to be more information on Vice's website than their actual. So for just under $4,000, you can own a bulky gun that will launch a metal rod across a room about as fast as a BB gun. Well, when you sell it to me like that, Gauss gun. So 10-round magazine can launch a 32mm long metal rods at a speed of 75 meters per second. It weighs 20 pounds, and the charger is sold separately. The charger is sold, bastards. I think they were saying about how inaccurate it is. So yeah, all three weapons use Gauss to move a projectile, basically magnets or magnetic force, meaning that they use a series of electromagnets to attract a metal rod to the end of the barrel. The electromagnets drag the projectile along until it builds speed and flies out to the end of the barrel. There's some physical limitations with that. You can only shut down the magnetic field so fast, so there's a maximum speed. You can accelerate things that are as big as you want, but it caps at around 300 foot per second. It's about the speed of a fast slingshot. So yeah, it's still very primitive, but still very interesting nonetheless. I'll certainly be watching it closely. I want to see more stuff out there. I've got some more specs here. 40 plus shots per cartridge. So it's going to be like having a PCP air rifle. Top it up every 2 minutes. Yeah, 85. Oh no, it says 85 joules, but it's not foot pounds. Oh no, it's 65 foot pounds, 85 joules. You may also like, what else do they say? Magazines. 3D printed magazines. Oh no, are they milled? Maybe, no, they look printed. They're even getting you on the magazines. You would at least expect like a coil gun to have cheaper magazines, right? Moving on from the coil gun, there is something that I want to. I went down sort of weird paths with this and weird rabbit holes, but it ended up sort of joining after all. So bear with me. There's a little bit of an update with all of the issues with revocations at the moment, and again, this comes from the Field Sports channel, Field Sports Channel News, and I'll bring up I won't show their video. You can go and watch the whole story about this. Devon and Cornwall police send out wrong revocations, bungled cops. So there was a guy last week that we talked about that had armed police just turned up at his door to revoke his certificates and take away his guns. No explanation given other than Plymouth. You know, oh, it's the Plymouth shootings, we've got to be careful. And it now transpires that Devon and Cornwall police have been sending out like mismatched letters and like wrong letters basically to these people that have had their certificates revoked. Like the level of incompetence that is continuously being demonstrated by this department, like why is nobody stepping in, right? They completely fucked up giving the person responsible for the Plymouth shooting a certificate in the first place. Like the amount of failings and the amount of stuff that they missed there should be grounds to close the entire department, gut it, and start all over again. The fact that they're now going out there and pretty much randomly revoking certificates so that they can in some way, you know, be seen to you know, be doing something, I guess, is just wrong. You know, people that have never put a foot wrong in their lives, or, you know, had an argument with their ex-wife 10 years ago are now having their licenses revoked. It's just absolutely sickening. And now they can't even do a simple task of sending out the right letter to these people. Like why is the motion on the shooters? Why is the attention on the certificate holders and not this department? Right? They're just like, in terms of warning signs of they're not fit to be doing their job, several. Right? And yet nobody's been, as far as I'm aware, nobody's been suspended. Nobody's, like, the department's obviously being investigated and there's an inquiry going on. But why has nobody been suspended over this yet? Right? Anyway, and the weird rabbit hole that I ended up getting to, which will lead back to this, is I actually got somebody contacted me that wanted some information about the offensive weapons bill, but nothing to do with the guns, everything to do with the knives. Of course, the main thing about the offensive weapons bill was actually acid and knives, banning zombie knives. Breathe. Please define to me what the fuck a zombie knife is, other than a knife with zombie written on it. But yeah, the vague definition of that. Anyway, of course, the Mars and Lever release were snuck in there and banned because they could. But this person got in contact with me to say that they had a knife confiscated or seized at customs. So they'd bought a knife from abroad, it got seized, and basically they'd been sent this very threatening letter, which basically said, like, you've broken the law, you've tried to import something that's illegal, and we're going to decide whether we take action against you. So he wanted a bit more reading material about what the offensive weapons bill is, what it defines the knives as. And then Connor's actually found this article. Now, this article is dated January 2019, and we will get back to the whole revocation thing in a second, I promise, but I'm giving you the context of my thinking here, which isn't necessarily always a good thing. So this article it's all about, if you get your knife seized by customs or border force, what do you do? I need to actually send this, if the person that I'm talking about in terms of had their knife seized, I need to send you this link because I only found it after I'd sent the email back to you. But this basically tells you what to do in these situations. It's dnaleisure.co.uk that you can find this. There you go. There's the website, or I would just Google what do you do if your goods are seized, but I'll send you the link if you are watching. And what's interesting though, and this sort of has nothing to do with the offensive weapons bill, because that received royal assent, certainly that received royal assent on the, the 16th of May 2019, but various parts of it didn't come into full effect till much later. So yeah, it's not really much to do with the offensive weapons bill. But what was interesting is this. A publication on the internet emerged boasting how Border Force have seized double the number of banned knives from the previous year. They claimed a 61% rise in confiscations. Now, as far as I'm aware here, seized and confiscations are different in terms of the statistic. Confiscations are when they fully confiscate the knife, right? When they don't give it back. Seized, also the figures of seized also include those that were returned. And they say arguably the figure is true. However, what they don't say is that, just for us, over 2,000 were returned to us that weren't banned. So they are. So we believe this is solely because they wanted to fabricate figures that makes their process look good. The government are clutching at straws in order to look like they're doing something and resorting to arguably illegal activities to achieve this goal. Now, where does this sound familiar? Right? And now you can probably start to see where I was getting, or where I was heading, where I was going with this. Right? So far we've come at the angle of these revocations as they're just trying to make it harder. Like you could argue, are they just doing this in terms of an intimidation factor? You know, how many people are going to see or hear of lawful firearms owners and certificate holders having, you know, the knock at the middle of the night by armed police and go, I don't really want to deal with that. I don't enjoy shooting that much, so I'm just going to give up my guns and avoid that hassle, right? So you could argue or question whether it's an intimidation tactic or even a harassment tactic of the police against firearms owners. I think there's evidence. Well, there's evidence that doesn't necessarily disprove that. But actually, maybe it's more in depth and more purposeful. So just like with the seizure of knives, perhaps Devon and Cornwall police, or you could ask whether they are increasing the number of revocations seemingly randomly, right? And this is what Field Sports Channel have said. This is what I think the NGO have also said, is that there seems to be no pattern to this. There's no rationale or logic or reason for some of these people having their certificates revoked. So it does almost seem to be random, like luck of the draw. What if they are doing that to increase the numbers of revocations, to then be able to say to government, to be able to say to the public, look at how many people's certificates we've revoked, right? And just like with the knives, what you don't end up finding out, or what they don't tell government or they tell the public, is how many of those revocations either ended with a successful appeal of the appellant, or they decided to give the guns back, right? It's just lies, and statistics. Let's take away almost seemingly randomly a load of people's guns, issue a load of revocations, and get our revocation certificate figures right up there, and then give everything back to them, and we're just hide behind the figure of revoked certificates. And it's like, just that paragraph, or that sentence, the government are clutching at straws in order to look like they are doing something and resorting to arguably illegal activities to achieve this goal. Did I actually transfer that? There we go. The government are clutching us. That's ding, 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 ding. If that doesn't ring a bell, or doesn't in some way, you can't see a connection there, right? That is just, and I think that might genuinely be what is going on, or what could be going on. Revoke a load of people's certificates, get our numbers up, and then we can say, look, we've been much harsher, we've been stricter, we revoked all of these, and it makes them look good. Whether or not they're actually then giving the guns back is sort of immaterial. Their figures are up there. They've sort of seemed to be doing something. Connors did raise an interesting counterpoint to that, which is, would they then just be making themselves look bad? Because if they did that, then what they're basically saying is, we gave guns to a load of people that we shouldn't have given them to. However, my counter to that is that the new legislation, Plymouth are sort of in this, or Devon and Cornwall are sort of in this golden period where they can say, well, hang on a minute, we've given all of these certificates out based on the old guidance. It's not our fault that guidance is seemingly insufficient, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the guidance and everything to do with ignoring serious warning flags, new guidance aside, of the person responsible. So, it's like they're in this golden period where they can play this game of saying, yes, based on the new guidance, we did give certificates out to people that we shouldn't have, or that wouldn't have got their certificates based on the new guidance. But we've got the new guidance now, so that's what we're doing it to. So yeah, we, based on the old guidance, we were wrong, but at the time we were right. And now we're going back and applying the new guidance on these people, and they're no longer, meeting the necessary bar to be able to be a certificate holder. And I think that's, so far, that seems to make the most sense. Again, my experience is there's not a lot of firearms licensing departments or head of firearms licensing departments that actually want to give out certificates in the first place. So it's sort of attractive for them to just go away randomly taking them off of people. But that is, you know, it gives them the certificates, it gives them the seem to be doing something, and they can sort of counter any objection, you know, well, new guidance, this, that, and the other. I don't know. Anybody else's video a bit choppy? I did see a little bit of dropout, but it seems to be pretty stable now. But I hope you got the general gist of what I was saying, even with the choppiness. Ricochet. If I lived in the UK, I'd buy Defender 110. Those are very rare and expensive here in the US. They're becoming rare and expensive here in the UK. Buying an original Defender is not an easy or cheap task at the moment. All these electronic weapons are susceptible to EMP. That means after an EMP event, they're paperweights. It depends. It depends on if you're using integrated circuits, and it depends. Like, yes, these ones would, the ones that we've seen so far, they're using integrated circuits, they're using microprocessors, things like that. Those would be fried with an EMP. But if you built it using purely discrete electronics, so you just used capacitors, you just used, you know, resistors, inductors, stuff like that, it wouldn't necessarily be susceptible to any EMP. But of course, like these, you are right, based on these ones, they would just be knocked out. So yeah, it's a good point. I'm put off buying knives from overseas for this reason. Yeah, it is a shame, because a lot of these knives are considerably cheaper if you buy them abroad and ship them in. But yeah, it's the part what I thought when I first started hearing about this, what I thought was happening, and obviously these stories predate the offensive weapons bill coming in. What might be happening, or thought might be happening with the knives, is the police not interpreting the laws correctly. And actually they do say this in this article, in this blog post, saying that actually a lot of the time that knives are held, it's because the police don't understand what they're looking at, that the knife does conform to UK law, or, you know, it might be banned from carry but is legal to have in the home. There's a lot of knives that, you know, you wouldn't be able to justify having on your person, but are perfectly legal to collect and have within private home collections. And the police don't understand that, or the mechanisms, you know, the subtleties in the mechanism. So I think there is a lot of that going on, and certainly with, I can only imagine that the offensive weapons bill has complicated that, because the term zombie knife, you know, any, like, I think it's a zombie knife is anything with, oh god, what? I'll get the actual Offensive Weapons Act zombie, because like the actual definition is just so vague. And you know, they could pretty much apply it to anything. Let me zombie knife definition. Legislation. So a weapon sometimes known as a zombie knife, zombie killer knife, or zombie slayer knife, being a blade with a cutting edge, a serrated edge, and images or words, whether on the blade or handle, that suggest it is used for the purpose of violence. Like, this is, you know, like, Americans love to, like, laugh at our firearms laws, right? Our knife laws far, you know, like having, like, that's it. You're literally censoring images and words now. Like, somehow, you know, a machete with the word zombie written on it is somehow more deadly, is more dangerous than just a plain black machete, you know. And I don't know, like, can any of these, you know, it's like saying, you know, a buck knife. Well, buck sounds very close to fuck, so is fuck a violent word, and is that a violent knife because it's got 3 of the letters out of fuck on it? It's like, it's just asinine. You know, CZ, this knife has CZ on it. Well, CZ make guns, and guns shoot people, so is that a violent knife because it's a gun knife? Like, is that a Section 5 knife? You know, it's just absolutely boggles the mind. Although interestingly, it has to have a cutting edge, a serrated edge, and so it has to have all of those 3 things. So you could have a zombie knife, you could still have a zombie machete, as long as it doesn't have a serrated edge. You know, and that's the thing. Like, you can have 2 of those 3 things, but you have all 3 of them, you're going to prison. Yeah, that's it. But anyway, that could be massively open to interpretation. You know, just a knife being green. Wow, well, it's zombie green, zombie violence, this, that, and the other. It's just, you know, of course, restricting and bringing in harsher penalties for, you know, throwing acid in somebody's face, I can get completely behind. But when they start talking about images and words on knives, you're just like, somebody had too much budget here. And obviously had too much budget with Mars and Lever release. Kick-ass chick, thanks for joining. You bored at home? Hope you're feeling well, or feeling better. So a buck knife is okay. I hope so. What if your name is Dave Zombie? Then you're then you're fucked. You can't have your name on the Whoa. Oh. This is, I might even have to email my firearms licensing team or police to check this out. So, you know, I'm a certified danger to the public. So if you put my name on a knife, does that make it a dangerous knife? You know, what if you, like, that's the thing. You could put, like, I don't know, you could put the Cray twins written on a knife. Suddenly it's a violent knife. Anyway. What about the swords from Beat Sabers? As long as they don't have zombie written on them, you're fine. And FYI, on Beat Saber, I'm going to connect the dots here. So actually been trying out and playing with, and there is a full video coming out on this soon. There are full videos coming out, period. I promise it's going to happen at some point. So Blobworks VR, I managed to get hands-on with, it's an IPSC VR trainer. Was so blown away with it that we ended up picking up a Quest 2. So I actually have a full VR kit, as does Connors, as does Kat, as does Paul, and we're all trying out, like, obviously there's other games on there, but we are all trying out this Blobworks VR IPSC trainer. And I will be doing a full video on this. I was going to just do the video on my experience at the show, but then ended up getting the VR anyway. So I'm going to find a way to, it's fairly easy to stream it, to be able to capture what I'm doing on it. But what I also want to do is actually at some point, and let me know if you'd absolutely hate the idea of this, but I think it would be pretty cool, is to actually do a live stream with it, because you can cast what you're seeing. So literally have a dedicated live stream of doing like IPSC stages and showing you this software. It will be pretty cool. And there might have to be a little bit of Beat Saber in there as well, because you know we've got pretty competitive in the office with that. It's getting out of hand. Send help. We need mediation soon, although there will be loss of life. But yeah, so I was just thinking maybe doing like a stream special where it's like all in VR, or at the very least having a good portion of it and showing you live. And so I can't just sit there, do the best strings and cut and edit. Like literally, you know, anything can happen when you're live. And I think that would be pretty cool, something a little bit different. And yeah, you don't need a huge amount of space to be able to do it as well, so it all works. Savile knives are dangerous. There's always one, isn't there? There's always one that has to go there. Tom Ellaway, hush your mouth. I mean, a decent shooter. You mean ones that can, you know, finish the Welsh Mini Rifle Championship? Too soon? Too soon? Too soon? You mean a decent shooter that doesn't slip over? You know, just, I mean, staying on your feet is pretty fundamental to finishing a competition, isn't it, Tom? I mean, you wanted to come here and throw shade. Welcome to my game. Welcome to my world. And you can double down if you want. But the question you have to ask is whether I have that footage to hand and whether or not I will show it. Your move. Do you feel lucky? Does anybody know the logic behind banning the carry of lock knives without good reason? Obviously, lock knives are safer. So the whole thing with the lock knife is, and it's also having the blade under 3.5 inches. It's so that they're less. I can't believe it. Their logic is it's harder for somebody to go and stab somebody without a locking knife, because so the CRKT Journeyer, this is like, it's always in my pocket. It's always what I you know, I've said before, when I made that knife video, I genuinely use this knife half a dozen to a dozen times a day for like the most mundane things. And it's like what I said in the video. It's like vape bottle. Yes, I'm a vapor. It's all right. I'm proud. Getting the tops off of these, like, you need a knife. Opening boxes at work. What was it the other day? I was like, was with my partner, and she was like, "Oh, I can't," you know. She was trying to do something. I just whipped it out. Just whipped it out and helped her out. She's gonna kill me when I get off stream. Anyway, so yeah, I've used it as a like impromptu screwdriver. I've used it when I'm filming, and you know, like a mic's come loose on the camera, and I've just screwed it back in. Anyway, it's really handy having one. But the whole premise is that if you go to like stab someone, it's magically going to fold. Like somehow it's going to be less dangerous or less stabbable. And again, the whole thing about them being a shorter blade, being under, I think it's 3 or 3.5 inches, is that you can do supposedly less damage than with a big knife. So, you know, all like pretty much everything here is not UK carry, although you can carry it. Well, I say you can't carry it with an exemption, but you can have knives that don't conform to the carry legislation on your person if you have good reason. So one of the, you know, common examples is like a builder or a tradesman, right? They may be going from one job to a next. They may be going from home to, you know, and they may still have various tools on their belt or on their person, and you know, they pop into a petrol station or pop into Tesco or whatever, and they might have a Stanley knife on them. And you know, they get stopped with that, although a Stanley knife actually technically would conform to carry laws because the blade's under 3.5 inches, but you know what I mean. It's, you know, or farmers, there's many, as long it all comes down to like, if the police stop you, can you explain why you have a great knife and a great big knife on you, or a locking knife or stuff like these? Because locking knives are not illegal, they're just not carry legal. They're not carry compliant. And the story that I always refer back to is when I was moving into my halls of residence for the first year of uni, I had a big duffel bag of kitchen stuff on me, and I had like a 10-inch kitchen knife, right? And I was, I was living in London, so I'd got the train from Portsmouth up to London, and then I'd got the tube to my halls of residence, and I was walking through the middle of South Kensington. Wasn't walking, waving it around or anything, but I had effectively a 10-inch kitchen knife on me. The thing is, if I'd been stopped by police, you can explain it. You can say, look, there's also my pots and pans, there's my cutlery, there's plates, bowls, some spices, whatever, and yes, there also happens to be a 10-inch kitchen knife. But as you can see, I'm with all my bed sheets in the other duffel bag, that I'm going to my halls of residence, and you can explain it. And in that situation, you have a good explanation, you have a good reason. It's when you're out there at 2:30 in the morning in your black hoodie and tracksuit bottoms, and all you have on you is your wallet, your phone, and a 10-inch kitchen knife. That's slightly harder to explain and get yourself out of. Screwdrivers enters the chat. Oh dear. Random question: does anyone know a source of 12 gauge US BB in the UK, not UK BB? Are you talking about like rubber rounds, like rubber? Oh, 12 gauge US BB in the. I have no idea, unfortunately. A Stanley knife is a fixed blade. A Stanley knife is a lock knife. It depends on the Stanley knife. So what I'm thinking of is a fixed blade. Like, can you carry a fix, or does it have to be a folding? But you can get folding Stanleys, and if you remove the locking mechanism, then it is a folding blade. Anyway, a knife is the most least effective, but certainly the most expensive pry bar or screwdriver you will ever own. Yeah, but I've always got it on me because it's always in my pocket. Like, the best tool is the tool you have to hand. If you don't have any other tools, so there might be a better tool out there, but if you don't have it in your hand, then you're screwed, right? One last thing to cover out that I wanted to, should have got onto this much sooner, was a little bit of a, let's say, overzealous firearms collector. So this jumped out at me from Essex Police. Owner of prohibited firearms collection, sentence. And you might think, what size was his collection? What happened? Now, some keen-eyed amongst you will start to recognise that actually a lot of these are air guns. A lot of these aren't functional guns, aren't even, licensable in some cases. There also seems to be an RPG there, but we'll just brush aside that. And as it transpires, this guy had 500 firearms and ammunition stored throughout the property. Now, I'm going to get in there straight away that as this transpired, he did have illegal firearms. So he pled guilty to 2 counts of possessing a prohibited self-loading / pump action smoothbore gun. I guess by prohibited, it was probably like a sawn-off, or it didn't conform to section 1 or section 2. I hope they're not saying a prohibited semi-auto or pump action smoothbore gun, because they're not prohibited, you can own them. And 1 count of possessing a shotgun without a certificate, 1 count of possessing a firearm without a certificate, 1 count of possessing a knife blade in a public place. Apt, based on what we were just talking about. So, look, this guy, he had stuff that he shouldn't have. And at the end of the day, no matter what the circumstance, I'm sure there's some people out there that would say, oh, he's just a 72-year-old old boy. He's obviously just a collector. He doesn't mean any harm. This is just overzealous policing, right? He had stuff he shouldn't have, right? And at the end of the day, this looks negatively on legal firearms owners. It doesn't do us any good, people out there breaking the law, because it's always used against us. The guy was breaking the law. So, you know, they've obviously gone and taken the guns away. They've, you know, sentenced the guy, you know, I would say fairly lightly, bearing in mind that he had various licensable firearms he didn't have a certificate with or certificate for. He had a 2-year suspended sentence, £2,000 in court costs, and must complete 30 rehabilitation days. I wonder what that consists of. But anyway, like, so that's all like fair enough. And I think in this case, the judge has been sensible, you know, and has looked at it like, no, this guy wasn't a threat. He was just collecting stuff. He still was breaking the law. So we'll give him a fairly light sentence, right? And then it just gets a little bit silly. And I'm not a deactivated firearms expert, and this is based on what I understand. Owning prohibited weapons and those that have not been deactivated to the required standard is not only illegal, but extremely dangerous. Okay, like, obviously, owning prohibited weapons, yes, very illegal. But those that have not, owning prohibited weapons and those that have not been deactivated to the required standard, first of all, no, actually, that isn't illegal. You can own deactivated firearms that aren't up to current standards, and I'll show you the page in that in a second, but extremely dangerous. Like, no, I'm sorry, owning prohibited firearms is not extremely dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it. Always stay well within the law, but it's not inherently dangerous, right? It's like, these aren't inanimate objects. These guns don't just get up there and start shooting people. And also to say or to suggest that owning deactivated firearms not up to the current standards is extremely dangerous, this is just horseshit, right? You've found somebody that was genuinely breaking the law, you've caught them, you've confiscated those guns, and he's got sentenced. Fair enough. Leave it there. Because under this, this is on the .gov, uk.gov, no, gov.uk page, it quite clearly says, deactivated firearms mean a firearm that has been deactivated in accordance with the technical specifications set out in the document published by the Secretary of State under all of that. Firearms which were deactivated prior to the 8th of April 2016 are not covered by these provisions until such time as they are transferred. So, clear, black and white, you can own deactivated firearms that are not up to current standards as long as you obtain those guns prior to 2016. And if you transfer, if you sell, give, whatever to somebody, then they do need to be up to current standards. But to suggest that it is illegal and extremely dangerous is just going too far. And then it just gets a little bit more silly. In this case, the firearm seeds were not loaded, and there was no suggestion that they were owned for any reason other than collector's items. But in the wrong hands, they were capable of inflicting serious injury. The firearms were also found incorrectly stored, meaning an unsuspected person or even Mr. Cole himself could have been injured accidentally should they have been loaded. Right? In this case, the firearm seeds were not loaded. Should they have been loaded? It's like, it's just like trying to hypothetically, well, it's just trying to scare people, right? None of this was needed, right? You found somebody that was breaking the law. You've punished them, you've caught them, whatever. Good job. That's what police are out there to do. And I can see some people saying, you know, he still didn't hurt anyone, no punishment needed. That's not how the law works, right? Like, yes, if you end up hurting somebody, or there are severe consequences to your actions, then yes, the punishment should be greater to reflect that. But you know, it's like speeding at 200 mile an hour down the motorway. Just because you don't get into an accident doesn't mean you shouldn't be punished. So we can just skip over that argument. But to go on this like very obviously political and sort of fear-mongering spiel is just not needed, and I think completely undoes any point that they may have had. You know, it's like if you put a loaded firearm on the table and don't touch it, it's not going to do anything, right? I'm not saying that's what you should do. And of course, firearms, certainly licensed firearms, should always be correctly stored, i.e. within a safe. But like, I guess they're saying the firearms, they're not saying the deactivated, you know, if they were saying the deactivated guns, but like incorrectly stored, you know, like they just weren't in a safe. But also the guy didn't have a certificate. He technically wasn't legally required to put them in a safe. It's just, you know, yes, we found a load of unloaded firearms, and, you know, we want to try and drill into people that these could have been really, really dangerous in these very specific circumstances that they weren't. You know, it's just, you know, and the real travesty of it all, I think, is a forfeit and destruction of weapons order was issued for the remaining weapons and munitions seized, required that they be destroyed. So, you know, like even though he had this collection, which largely, again, he did break the law and punishment should be inflicted for that, but largely the majority, like 99%, like literally like 99% of his collection was lawful for him to be in possession of, and now it's all been seized, and they've got this lovely evidence photo. You know, again, we can pick out air guns, like there's bloody air guns in there, and you know they're making it seem like this was like an absolute nut job with a cachet of all sorts of guns and all sorts of munitions. Like, it's just over the top, it's over inflated. To be fair, some of them looked fairly heavy. I would not want to be hit over the head with one of those deactivated firearms. Yeah, exactly. And you know, in photos like this, like these obviously weren't real, you know, or these obviously weren't functioning. Yeah, more air guns there. Unfortunately, all now made to the scrapper, and that's it. That's what I think the police need to calm down on, is the political charged fear mongering. When stuff like this, like, yes, you've got a point, the guy was breaking the law, but to parade all of these guns that the majority of people could go out and buy themselves without any license at all, is just not doing us favors. Damn, caught a glimpse of a Schmidt-Rubin there. Well, again, hopefully that was deactivated. But yeah, anyway, I'm gonna head off, but before you do, make sure you like, if you have enjoyed this live stream this evening, a glimpse into the future of firearms that we're going to see probably not too far away. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Like the stream, subscribe. It really does help with the channel. Obviously, subscribing helps, but even just liking it, it's free. I won't tell anyone if you don't. It really boosts the analytics and helps the video reach new people, and it's been working. Like, the streams have been reaching a lot more people recently. It's all about getting new people into the sport. The more people we reach, the more people get into it, the safer as a whole the sport becomes, and the more numbers we have to be able to try and get things back like handguns and full auto, Freudian slip there, for semi-automatic rifles. If we get enough people, maybe even full autos. But there, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you all have a fantastic week. It's likely you'll get confirmation on either Facebook or the YouTube community page. Might move the live stream next week. Might do it on I don't actually know, because it's might not be able to do it on a Thursday. Might have to do it on the Wednesday, maybe even Tuesday. But then Christmas Eve is on the Friday. Christmas Day, I think I'm actually going to be on my lonesome for Christmas Eve, because my partner's working, so I might even move it to the Friday and do a Christmas Eve special. I don't know, might not even move it at all, we'll see. But just a heads up that it might be a day earlier or a day later next week. But yeah, if for whatever reason I don't see you or you don't manage to catch next week's stream, a very Merry Christmas to everybody that celebrates it out there, and have a fantastic New Year, and yeah, a fantastic week to come. But yeah, again, thanks for joining. Like, subscribe, share, comment, and as always, I hope to see you soon.